Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. Hey, architecture firm owners and emerging leaders. Get ready for unparalleled insight into the development of a world-class architecture firm and a worldwide organization driving the digital transformation of the design and construction industry. With Build Smart, the podcast that's changing how our profession operates. We share the incredible stories behind innovation in the building industry with my friend and co-host, Patrick McLeamy, FAIA, former CEO of the international architecture firm, HOK.
You know, Yamasaki's office or firm lasted during his lifetime. And when he passed away, I think that was the end of the Yamasaki office. Helmut did not want that. He wanted a firm that would live out and grow beyond the founders.
In Season 1, discover the untold stories behind HOK's meteoric rise, from 150 employees in St. Louis to a powerhouse with over 1,900 staff members and 27 offices worldwide.
You know, they weren't as polite as the Kojima people. That was just boom. And anytime you have a creditor, whether it's Kojima or the bank, that wants their money, unless you can raise money someplace else, you are out of business.
Bankrupt. And hold on tight for Season 2, where Patrick takes us on a new adventure as chairman of Building Smart International, shaping the future of digital transformation in the design, construction, and operation of built assets.
Ian Howell, Ken Harold, and I, Ken was my technical representative from HOK. The three of us took a tour of Europe of 5 cities in 5 days. Very busy time.
Simply follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Smart now and uncover lessons that will transform you and your architecture firm. My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect.
Today I have with me a very, very special guest. We are going to basically do a co-interview here. So if you hear Mark asking me, I've kind of given away who the guest is today, but if you hear Mark asking me questions, that's why. I have with me Mark LePage, small firm entrepreneur architect, writer, podcaster, educator, speaker, managing partner with his wife, Anne-Marie, in Five Cat Studios. Five Cat Studios, for those of you that do not know about them, is an award-winning architecture firm who does an amazing job creating contemporary architecture just outside of the Charlotte, North Carolina market, and in that market as well. They have a regional reputation for doing an amazing job with their firm. But in addition to that, Mark, who started Entree Architect in 2007 as a personal blog, is joining me here today. And that resource for architects globally has grown into a major resource to help architects run their practices and really accelerate their growth. So Mark, thank you for joining me today in this, my first co-podcast interview process.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. This is going to be fun. I don't know what to expect either, so I'm excited to be on your show, and I'm excited to share this with my audience as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. First, thanks for doing this. Thanks for reaching out. Really, you reached out to me and started this process, so kudos to you. Full transparency, I feel like I'm about to interview myself because you and I think very similarly. We have a lot of similar ideas and I guess opinions about the architecture space and business of architecture and whatnot. So why don't you give us your sort of origin story, your background? How did you get into architecture? Why did you get into architecture? Let's kick it off there.
Sure, I could take up hours with that, but I'll try to keep it short. I decided to become an architect when I was 10, and I was an artist. I loved to draw. I loved to sketch. I'm a dreamer. And that came in very handy to have the skill of drawing because I could dream what my future would look like and draw it, right? And so I was into cars and boats and fancy houses and all those things that kids are involved in, and I would draw them and say, oh, this week my dream car is a Camaro. Next month was monster truck, and I could draw all those things. And so I was drawing every day, all day, whenever I had an opportunity. I'd have a sketchbook and a pencil, and I would draw. And so I decided when I, realized that there was, when people asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would say I want to be an artist, and because that's what I was. I liked to draw, and my mom introduced me to the idea of being an architect. That maybe you can take your skills and go into a profession, and a mom trying to guide you from starving artists to a professional isn't such a bad idea. And so she introduced me to architecture, and I thought, well, that'd be great. I'd be able to be an artist, and I'd be able to make a lot of money because architects make a lot of money, right? Because they're just like doctors and lawyers and all the other professionals that are making a lot of money. And so my whole childhood from 10 years on was, okay, I'm going to be an architect. And I literally, that was it. I locked in at 10 years old. And I've told this story in the past, but even in high school, when you take the evaluation test to see what, your proficiency test to see what you would be good at as a profession, I rigged it to make sure it came out as architect. I put the blinders on and I was going to be an architect no matter what. And so I went to architecture school, went to Roger Williams University in Rhode Island, got my architecture degree, came out, knew that I wanted to start my own architecture firm forever. That's what I wanted. And so I came out of architecture school, and I wanted to make sure that I experienced all the different types of firms. And so I came out of school in a recession, got a job with Barry Postgenzer, architect and planner in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and worked for him for several years, which is a small firm, and met my wife. She came in about a year after I was working there. My employer, Barry Postgenzer, takes full 100% credit for my entire life because he introduced me to my wife, which they didn't know. They didn't know that we were even dating at the time. Anne-Marie had moved on to another firm, and when I left the firm, I not only told Barry that we were dating, but we were engaged to get married. And he had no idea that we were even interested in one another. And so that's where I met my wife. Then I moved on to a very large firm, which is URS today. I think it's URS Corp. I think it's called today. It was URS Consultants at the time. They merged with Grenier since then and became one of the largest engineering/architecture firms in the world. Worked there for about 9 months. Knew that I'd never wanted to work for a very large firm, but I wanted that experience.
Sure.
And then went and moved on to a middle-sized firm. Actually, it's really a larger, small firm, KG&D Architects in Mount Kisco, New York. I got married and moved to Westchester County, New York. Worked with KG&D for several years, became a project manager there, and worked with one of the principals, sort of as his right-hand man, and got to do everything in that firm. Got to learn how to run projects. I got to design, got to do all the different things I wanted to do. But I got to the point where I had to make a decision on whether I was going to start my own firm or whether I was going to become a partner in that firm. That's the level that I was at. I needed to understand, should I continue with this firm and become a partner, or should I go and do my own thing? And I always wanted to do my own thing, so I did that. And so Anne-Marie and I became partners. She and I are the perfect architect when you mush us together. She is the design side, loves to design, loves architecture, loves residential architecture specifically. And I love business. I love the game of business. And so I took that responsibility. She took that responsibility. And I really focused on the business side. And I started a blog in 2006 as a marketing tool for the architecture firm that was very successful. My residential clients felt like they knew me when they read that blog. When I finally got to meet them, they're like, "Oh, Mark, my friend, I've been reading you for years." And so I realized the power of this thing, the internet, 2006. 1999, we started the firm, and I built a website in 1999, tried to convince architects that they needed websites. They all rejected the idea of websites in 1999. What do you need that for? You don't need the internet. It's a fad. That's not going to become anything.
Ridiculous.
Took years for architects in Westchester County to catch up to me. We built that firm very quickly because of the internet, because people were using the internet. They were searching for architects in Westchester County, and I was coming up number one. And so from a firm that had no work and no clients, no money, built the firm very quickly using the internet. So I recognized the power of the internet very quickly. Built that blog, recognized the power of the blog, and launched a blog for myself called Entrepreneur Architect in 2007. And that was really a personal blog for myself. It was just a place to sort of record things that I found on the internet about business, because I would go and I would search for business and find articles or find websites, and I would post them in the blog so I could always go back to the blog and search for them and reference them. And because in 2007, there was nothing on the internet for architects and business, I very quickly found an audience for that blog, which I wasn't trying to do. But that other architects were looking for business information for architects, and they were finding me because I was the only one there. And so in the comments of that blog formed the seeds, the origin of the community which is today the Entre Architect community. But we would, I would post something, they would comment, and we would have a conversation in the comments way before social media even existed. And that blog continued to grow. That community continued to grow. That community encouraged me all throughout the years to build it into something bigger. And in late 2012, I wrote a blog post, called it My 12-12-12 Project. It was on December 12th, 2012. I promised that I was going to do something that would impact me, change my life, and it would impact the world in a positive way. And I encouraged my listeners, I encouraged my readers to do the same thing, to have their own 12-12-12 project. My 12-12-12 project was entrearchitect.com. Launch it as a platform for small firms to learn how to build better businesses. I launched the Entre Architect podcast that same day at 12/12/2012, December 12th. That's when episode 0 was published. And that was the beginning of all of it. And Entree Architect has grown from that seed to what it is today, which is tens of thousands of architects across the world working together as a community to learn better business. There's a membership site. There's a Facebook group with 7,500 architects in it. The podcast this is episode 451. And so this is what it's become. It's become my life. I don't practice very much anymore. We practice with very small projects now here in North Carolina. And we moved here in 2019 from New York. And then the only other thing that I would mention is that in 2020, I launched Gable Media, which is a media company. And that started because I wanted to create a second podcast. And so I asked my friend Jeff Eccles to host a second podcast. He's a marketing expert, and I wanted to do a marketing podcast, make him the host. I invited my friend Demetrius Lynch, who is the founder of Spaces Podcast, which is a great podcast, really well done, and put those two guys together to create Build Your Brand podcast. Through that process, Demetrius and I recognized that there was another big opportunity to create a media network for architects for podcasting and video channels and digital print. And we partnered, started a new company called Gable Media, and now has 11 podcasts on it and two, three video channels and growing. And so that's sort of everything in a nutshell. A lot longer than I expected it to be, but I told you
that's good.
Take hours.
Yeah, it could be. We could be here 3 more hours now. And those are great podcasts, by the way. I've seen a few of those now, and they're awesome. So
thank you.
That's great job recognizing the need in that, another avenue in the architecture space. You said something in the middle of your story about recognizing that you were good at the business side and Anne-Marie was good at just wanting to be an architect,
right,
and being the design side. How often do you think, or you see when you talk to a ton of architects in the architectural community, how often do you see that, in pardon the pun, that marriage of knowing who's good at business and who's good at architecture, or who likes what side more? And how often does that happen? And how often is it more of a train wreck where it doesn't happen in the architecture space?
Yeah. Way more often it doesn't work because architects go to architecture school to become architects, right? None of us go to architecture school to become business people. Just isn't part of the plan. You don't recognize it because they don't even tell you that in architecture school, right? They don't teach you business in architecture school. So you have no idea. You get blindsided by that when you decide that you want to start an architecture firm. And then you realize that you have no idea how to start an architecture firm because no one's taught us that. And so most firms, even if there's partners, most firms, they do everything, right? That the partners do business, they do, design, and a lot of them sort of run them as separate firms. Others recognize that that one has a strength, so they take the responsibility, though they don't want to, but they will because they know they have to. But if you do look at large firms, right? Large firms, KPF, HOK, SOM, they're three letters for a reason. Mm-hmm. Those firms recognize that there needs to be a partner for each part of the firm. There needs to be a partner to manage the firm. There needs to be a partner to design the architecture, and there needs to be a technical partner. And actually, I partnered for a podcast called Build Smart with the former CEO of HOK, Patrick McLamey, who tells that entire story of HOK. From the very beginning, the origins of him coming on as a draftsman, and tells the entire story of HOK until he became the CEO, and talks about how they launched HOK specifically to have those specific roles. And that's why, one of the reasons why HOK has become so successful.
Interesting.
So it's really important to, even if you are a sole practitioner, the business side is a requirement. It is mandatory, right? If you start an architecture firm, you started a business. And so therefore we need to have somebody focused on the business. It either needs to be you or it needs to be someone else. And so if it's someone else, that needs to be a partner or a consultant, but it needs to be somebody. And you need to understand the fundamentals of business and execute on those fundamentals of business. And if you do, there's a reward. You get to be an architect because you build a really successful business, and then you can be a better architect. You can go and serve your clients much better. You can serve your employees much better. You have more freedom to do the architecture that you want to do. You can spend more time with your family. All of everything becomes better when you focus on the business and become more financially successful.
Sure. I would say I've had a similar sort of observation. It's either all design or all business. And there's very often not a good meshing of the two in between.
What's your story, Chris? Where did you discover that? Because I don't know that answer. And I'm sure your listeners would like to know that.
Yeah. So I wasn't smart enough to rig my aptitude test. So, in high school, I had one class that I liked, and that was my drafting class. I was not an academic. I really didn't like school much at all. I was bored out of my mind. But I had this one class, my junior and senior year of high school, drafting and advanced drafting. Those were the two. And that was the class I had fun in. So when I started, I got to the point where I had to do the aptitude test, and it came back that I should look at janitorial services or landscaping. And I was like, I just don't see a future for me in janitorial services. So at the time, much like you, my mom was pushing me, go see this architect. Our church was being renovated at the time, I think my junior year. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I didn't listen to a thing she said. And I have to credit my mom for this. She kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And so I finally called the guy. She spoke to this guy named Dan Fay, who was the younger principal of a firm called TKF, Teisch Kent Fay, in Cazenovia, New York. And so I went, I scheduled an appointment. I was still in high school, and he's like, well, why don't you come draft for us? And I'm like, I'm in high school. Like, I don't know anything about AutoCAD. So I went there, and that's how I really got started into the architecture space. I was like, well, I like this. I was going out, I was measuring. I didn't know anything. I was a total train wreck, right? Can you imagine a high school kid working in an architecture firm? But it started to click, and I started to pick up on things. And I watched and observed what the partners were doing and what the project managers were doing. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And so moving into my senior year, I went to Alfred, got there, very technical school. But I would come back and I would go vacations, summers, work there. And then I was coming back. I had some skill. I actually knew how to use AutoCAD and do some other things. But that was really sort of my origin into architecture and where it started. But I would observe, and they were a small firm where I started. And then eventually I would move on to a larger firm. I went out on my own for a while. And I would start to see these sort of things where, like, we were either really, really, really good at design, but nobody knew how to market. And when I say we, would be the firm I was working at, or in my case, when you mentioned it, like, you decide you're going to start a firm, you really decide you're starting a business. You just don't know it. Like, right. It's almost like as an architect, you don't realize that when you go out on your own, you're starting a business. You think you're starting an architectural practice, you're starting a business. And while they're one and the same, they are completely different. So I had partners when I was out on my own. I had a partner, and I was really good at business. I was really good at business development. I was good at going out, and he was antisocial in some regards, but he was really good at the things that I was horrible at. So I was like, oh, well, this could work. You could see how some of those puzzle pieces fit together. But also I could see early on, and when I was working at other firms, like we have a problem here, or this is going to work out really well, because we were either really good at the design side and it was word of mouth was the only way they got work, which is good when word of mouth works and the economy is great, and then horrible the rest of the time. Or we had like this real kind of like your experience, you see these bigger, larger firms, maybe almost too business heavy, where there's no respect for the design side and what the architect does. So I had this unique situation where I could observe, all right, great on the architectural side, bad on the business side, great on the business side, couldn't, architecture wasn't that important in more of a corporate setting, and that imbalance that could happen. So that's why I asked you about you and your wife, because it's such a unique situation that I don't think happens often enough. And I think, in architecture school, largely you're still on your own. Yes, there's group projects, but for the most part, and I think things are changing a little bit, you're kind of on your own, do your own thing. And that's not how business works. I mean, you mentioned it a second ago, you can't do your own thing in business and be successful, or be at least survive and have a good survival rate. So hopefully I think the conversation is changing a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed on my podcast, one of my college professors, and one of the questions I asked him is it your job to educate your students to be good at business? And he's like, Chris, I can't even educate them on the technical and the design. I don't have enough time to do that part, let alone teach them how to run a business. So,
and that's pretty universal for educators. The architectural schools don't feel it's their responsibility to teach architects business. And that's the answer, is that they don't have time to do that. They're teaching us to be architects. But there is a missing link of between architecture school and practice. It's supposed to be NCARB and the AXP, but it's not happening there either. And so there needs to be another step where architects learn to run businesses. And whether you're starting your own architecture firm or not, knowing the fundamentals of business will make you a better architect, even if you're working for someone else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I see that a lot too. There's a disconnect between management and the doers, right? And well, why can't I get a $40 an hour raise? You're charging the client $150 an hour for my time. And there's a huge disconnect between, liability insurance and, a multiplier and all those things that go into running a practice. So I would agree, having an understanding as an employee of how a practice is run would make you a better employee and probably give you more opportunity as well.
Yeah. And you'd make more money.
Totally. Yeah. Because you become more valuable.
Right.
When you started Entree Architect, I know you gave us sort of the origin story.
Yeah.
What is the mission? I mean, if you have like one battle cry right now with Entree Architect, because I'm sure it's probably changed over the years, and as the industry's changed and different barriers pop up for architects, you're probably navigating those real time. But what would you say is, if what's your battle cry right now?
Yeah. Well, the battle cry is profit, then art. Right. And that's self-explanatory based on what we've been talking about. Build a business first, and then you could be a great architect. Right. And so I've been saying that for years. And when I first started saying that, architects, and it still happens, that, they would physically reject it. Right. They would, the hair on the back of their necks would stand up because the word profit comes before art. But if you build a successful business, then you can be a better architect. And so that's the battle cry, but really the mission is to make individual architects more successful, right? And it's the same as you, Chris. It's if we can help architects individually build stronger businesses, then the profession thrives, right? The profession becomes a stronger profession that can evolve with the technology and evolve with the industry and evolve with the world that's developing around us, which benefits the world. Right? When architects are successful, when you have a strong, thriving architecture profession, the world literally benefits from that, right? So if I can help individual architects be more successful, the profession thrives and the world becomes a better place. And so that's my mission, right? Is to make the world a better place. Everybody wants to leave the world better than you found it, and that's the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like I said in the beginning of this, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself because I have a very similar sort of philosophy about this, and it gets a little bit cornier because I believe that when you design, when you're in the flow as an architect, you have this frequency that you put out. Everything has a frequency. Think about anger. You're walking around angry, you're going to attract anger towards you, angry people, and everything's going to be anger. But if you look at design, and when you're designing, it's creation. You're in the creative mode. It's like God to some extent. Maybe that's why a lot of architects have the God complex. But that frequency, when you're putting that out, is what goes into your work. And to your point, your work is what's shaping the built environment. Your work is what's going to benefit society. And any society that's prosperous or healthy or productive celebrates art and architecture. And if you go back through history and you see any society, I mean, we could sit here and name them all, but any society that was at their height and was prosperous, an architect was a large part of that society, and an architect was also highly respected in that society. But that's because the society was benefiting from the work that the architects did. And so I get a little more corny with it, but it's very same thing.
I don't think that's corny at all. I love that. I think that it is what it is, right? I mean, that is what it is. It's history. Yeah. And that's very much the reality of today. But if you look at the future, do architects have a position in the future? Do they have a role in the future, right? When technology starts to do some of the work that we do, how do we continue to have that respect from our society, right? How do we continue to have that role in, first of all, recover that role, right? Because it's part of our problem, right? Is that we've let that go. So how do we recover it? And then in the future, when there are other industries and other technologies doing a lot of the work that we do, how do we continuously stay relevant to our societies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's probably why you and I and others do what we do for the profession. I think in one regard, we have to rehabilitate our self-respect. We've done a horrible job at really undercutting each other. And kind of what I was talking about a second ago, in college, you're on your own for 5 years, right? Go and do your own project. Don't talk to anybody. Don't collaborate. Don't cheat. And then you're put out into the real world. And the way you are successful is you collaborate. You work with other people and you play off each other's strengths. And it's a weird profession. We're all highly, we're all highly like driven when it comes to our own creativity, but yet we're not really good at sharing with each other. And I think that leads to some of the situations where you see we undercut each other to get a project, right? I'm going to take a loss to win this project so you don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And we're one of the, I think, few professions that do that. Maybe there's an attorney that does it, doctors. When was the last time anybody asked the doctor how much it's going to cost? You just go in and you pay for it. So I think we have to get past, and this is a long answer to what your question is, but you even mentioned a second ago, profit first. And most architects freak out when they hear that because they're so worried about, I need to get the project. I need to express myself. I need to be creative at any cost, including losing money and screwing the guy or girl in the firm across the street. So it's a very holistic problem. I think that's somehow become inbred in our profession.
Yeah.
And it's going to change it's going to take a major perspective change in order to shift how we think about each other and how we think about our profession. I think a lot of it has to do with self-respect, which is a bizarre thing to say about highly creative, highly educated profession.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that much of that is generational. I think that the generations before me were taught that, right? That business was bad, right? That we weren't allowed. I mean, we were literally not allowed to market ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? We were literally not allowed to talk about fees and money. We're still not allowed in the AIA.
Correct.
There's still rules that you're not allowed to talk about fees when you're within the purview of an AIA event, which is ridiculous and crazy. I understand why they do it because of the antitrust law, and they're protecting themselves as an organization. But that's terrible, right? That is damaged generations of architects to not be able to talk about business. Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. This episode is brought to you by BQE, the makers of BQE Core, systems and standard operating procedures. You already know that that's how to build a profitable business and find the freedom you want. You need systems and procedures. But you struggle with choosing which systems you need most and how to implement those systems quickly so you can get back to doing what you love most. The Designing Your Business Masterclass series was created by acclaimed architect and business consultant Douglas Teager to help fellow architects and engineers run their firms more profitably while maintaining a healthy work-life balance. Douglas grew from a solo practitioner to become managing partner of his 30-plus person firm and then later sold his firm so he can do what he does today, helping architects be more successful at Teager Consulting. On the third Wednesday of every month, Douglas dives deep into an essential topic that will strengthen the profitability of your firm and make it sustainable for growth in the years to come. Register now for the next Designing Your Business Masterclass with Douglas Teager at bqe.com/masterclass and start implementing powerful systems for the profitability you need and the freedom you want. Every live masterclass session includes AIA continuing education credit, and when you visit bqe.com/masterclass, you'll have access to the full library of past sessions on demand. The Designing Your Business Masterclass is free, and it's brought to you by our friends at BQE, the makers of BQE Core, the software that makes it easy to manage your projects and people for maximum productivity and ultimate profitability. Register now for the Designing Your Business Masterclass at bqe.com/masterclass. That's bqe.com/masterclass. This episode is brought to you by FreshBooks. There's a lot to love about being an entrepreneur architect, right? But trying to figure out your financials on your own is not one of those things. Luckily, there's FreshBooks, the all-in-one accounting solution that's built for business owners like us. FreshBooks takes all the not-so-fun parts of running a business, from building and tracking invoices to managing online payments to organizing expenses, and automates them with features like the new digital bills and receipt scanner, saving you up to 11 hours per week in the process. 11 hours. FreshBooks has your back at tax time, too. It's almost tax time. With a ton of reports to choose from, you'll know exactly where your business stands, and you can easily hand the keys over to your accountant so they can take over when it's time to reconcile everything for the year. Try FreshBooks. Try FreshBooks for free for 30 days. No credit card required. It's free. Go to freshbooks.com/architect. freshbooks.com/architect to get started today. That's freshbooks.com/architect. So, what will you do with your 11 more hours each week? This episode is brought to you by arcat.com. We all have that one story, that one project that had such a unique situation that it required a solution that you had rarely considered before. We share these stories in private professional circles with our friends and our colleagues, But there has never been a collection of these stories of conflict and triumph all in one place until now. Detailed is a podcast series that features architects, engineers, builders, and manufacturers who share their insights and expertise as they highlight some of the most complex, interesting, and oddball building conditions that they have ever encountered, and the ingenuity it took to solve them. Join host Charisse Lakeside, aka CSI Kraken, a senior specifications writer at RDH Building Science, as she uncovers lessons learned to help you navigate similar challenges that may arise in your next project. Detailed, an original podcast by ARCAT. Listen and subscribe right now at arcat.com/podcast. That's arcat.com/podcast. arcat.com/podcast. Detailed. Every building has a story. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the Entre Architect community. I see a shift. I feel the momentum shifting because of people like you, Chris, and things that I'm doing at Entre Architect, and Enoch Sears doing what he's doing, and Evelyn Lee doing what she's doing at Practice of Architecture. There's a generation of us that recognize this, right? And we are out there trying to be leaders, trying to inspire and motivate a generation of architects, the prior generation to us, to recognize that they need to change, but also to inspire the next generation. And so that culture of sharing is something that I've been very focused on at Entre Architect, and specifically at the Entre Architect Facebook group. It is built with a culture of sharing, openness, transparent sharing. Be in there, be positive, be kind with one another, share with one another, love one another, care for one another, right?
Sure.
And so there's a culture in there that's very positive and encouraging. It's hard to manage that sometimes. Now we have 7,500 people. There's always somebody in there liking to poke, but that's the culture that's in there, right? The culture self-polices themselves, which is redundant, but they're in there protecting the culture because they recognize that there's a value there. I also feel that the next generation is coming to this profession expecting that. They're expecting to be entrepreneurial. They're expecting to be sharing because they've been doing that since they've been born, right? They've been on the internet literally with an iPhone in their hands since they were born. And as kids and teenagers and young adults, their existence on that device has been sharing their life, sharing everything, right? They share where they are, where they're going, how they're going, what they look like, what they're wearing. They're sharing everything. And so as they enter the profession, they will expect to continue to share, and they will expect, and they're very entrepreneurial because of the internet. They see businesses can be built. Many of them recognize that they can build businesses, very successful businesses without universities. And so there's that shift that's happening. And so I see that there is a momentum that is moving in the right direction, that architects are sharing more, and those shifts are happening because of the work that you and I are doing.
I would agree. I think, with any problem, the first step is acknowledging it and having a conversation around it. And I think largely from the work you've done and others that have come before me and in my generation is you started the conversation.
Right.
It used to be don't ask, right? Sit down, go back to work, shut up. You have a job. And now you can at least have the conversation around it. It's taken a long time. You've been doing this since 2007, right? So yeah. I'm sure you've probably seen the shift to be more positive conversation. I think the younger generations are part of that though, right?
Yeah.
To help that conversation.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it was very interesting, the evolution of Entre Architect, because when I first started that blog, I would write openly about how much I was charging and encouraging others to talk about that. And every time I did that, I'd get some old timer emailing me separately saying, hey, Mark, I want to protect you. I don't know if you know, but you shouldn't be doing that. That's against the law, right? And so there's an entire generation that thinks that talking about money as an architect is illegal, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to, for years, respond to that and share information about why it's not illegal, why it's important to do that. And so even that generation now is coming around and recognizing that it is important to talk about business and talking about money. But there has been this evolution in our profession that has shifted from very secretive, very hoarding of information to becoming more open and honest and sharing with one another.
I had a very similar, you talk about the fee conversation, and you mentioned that before, right? People push back on you. And marketing is the same way.
Yeah.
Early 1900s, the AIA frowned upon marketing. And
right.
years ago, I started a marketing, because I love marketing. It's just like you, I love the business side of what architects can do. And one of the biggest rejections I got from a lot of architects, especially older ones, is it's not, you should not market as an architect. It is not something we do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so bizarre. And there's a lot of that still goes on today.
It's cultural, right? Because that's the way they were taught. It's not because that's the way they feel, right? It's the way that they were taught. They were taught that that's the way it worked. And there was a generation that's the way it did work. That is how it worked. But it certainly doesn't work that way anymore.
No.
Right? We absolutely all have to be marketers. We all have to be media companies, right? We all have to tell our stories. That's how the profession shifts from the mind of our clients, right? When we hear architects say that we're not valued anymore, we're not respected as architects, that's because we're not telling our story. Someone else is telling our story. HGTV is telling our story. Other industries are telling our story, and it's not accurate. And so it's our responsibility. Again, it's our individual architects, our responsibility to tell our individual story, right? Through social media, through writing books, through podcasts. Tell that industry, or tell that audience, tell the consumers what we do. And by doing that, that's how that respect and that value will happen, which is the origin of Gable Media. That's why we built Gable Media, so we can help architects tell those stories.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. So we've talked about a lot of topics here that I think are probably some of the bigger maybe challenges in the profession. Are these the only challenges you see? I mean, if you had to pin down one major or a few major problems in the industry, did we hit them all? Or are there a few others that you see out there that you're like, this is worse?
Yeah, I think there is something way worse. I think that architects are rejecting the technology that's coming to us. That artificial intelligence and the metaverse and NFTs and VR and all of this technology that's out there that's being developed, much of it being developed without us, right? There are industries that are coming into our profession and replacing us with technology. And so that's a problem, right? That if we don't recognize that's happening, right? That we see it, that it's happening, and embrace that technology, because you can't reject it. It has momentum. It is coming. Yeah. It is inevitable. It's going to come. Our existence is based on whether we accept that technology, embrace that technology, control that technology, and develop that technology ourselves from within the profession. And then we will be able to continue to thrive and regain that value and that position, that coveted position of leader as a profession. If we don't, we go away. We become obsolete. We get replaced by technology and other industries. Without a doubt, that will happen if we don't embrace that technology. Way worse than anything we've seen in the past in the profession, because we literally can become obsolete.
Sure. Do you think we're going to see, and I think I already know your answer based on what you just said, but do you think we're heading towards a space where AI takes over and just designs buildings?
I just literally, just before this conversation with you, I got off another conversation, which is most likely the episode before this one, with Eitan Safarti, I think his name was, with Swap.net is the name of the company. It is an architecture construction AI company. He is developing software to design buildings, to design the entire thing. That's what he said he's doing. And it's doing it now. And so I asked him the question about what about the future of architects? And he said there's definitely a role for architects in the future. It is about problem solving and creativity. And so, yes, let the architect, let the technology, let the AI create the redundant stuff, the stuff that we spend hours and maybe weeks on developing models of that building that, you know, could be done by a computer very easily.
Sure.
Right? Plug in the parameters of what you need the building. AI takes over, pops out within seconds a building. It is our job as architects to take that building and personalize it to the client, personalize it to the context, put a creative, a unique way of presenting it, and solve the problems, right? Make the connections between the people, right? We become very much a relationship-based profession in the future because the technology is going to be doing a lot of the things that, you know, that we've been doing.
It almost sounds like, though, in a perfect scenario, ideal for architects, right? I don't have to do any of the boring, redundant stuff.
That's what Eitan was saying, is that it takes care of all the stuff that we don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
And it presents us something that we can go and do the things that we love to do. We love to be creative. We love to come up with new solutions that haven't been created before. And so let the computer do all of that, which it will, whether we want it to or not. It's going to. That's going to
happen. Yeah.
And so that's why I say embrace it. Where are those tools? Take those tools, get them into your firms, use them, figure out how to profit from them, how to make you more profitable by being more efficient, and control them, right? You tell that story of what our future is, because if we don't, we're gone.
Yeah. But to your point, it's something we have to get ahead of, take responsibility for, be in charge of, market, promote, and be trained on how to actually sell the value of the creative side, which is what most architects struggle with now, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to prove their value for something that's largely been commoditized because we have not taken responsibility for it.
Yeah, we should also not be afraid to step out of our traditional role as architects, right? If you have an idea for technology, go develop that technology. Don't be afraid that maybe you're not going to practice architecture anymore. Solve the problem, right?
No.
Architects don't have to be building designers, right? Architects are problem solvers, and if we evolve, maybe we become something more than building designers, right? Maybe we go into buildings, maybe we go into homes or office buildings or industrial buildings, and we solve problems. Sometimes that problem solution is a building. Sometimes it's not, right? And if our role is problem solving rather than building designing, we will become much more relevant.
Yeah. I think there's something key there that probably gets glossed over in our profession is we're problem solvers, right? It's always looked at as, it's a building or it's a design, but it's a solution to a problem. And if you look at most buildings, especially buildings in the public space, for whatever reason, last night I was looking at airports. And like I've had to travel a lot lately. So I'm like, some airports are horrible. They don't, it's just atrocious, right?
LaGuardia, Cooper, looking at you.
But then now I haven't been to Atlanta, but everybody tells me Atlanta is one of the most efficient airports on the planet. So I looked it up because I'm curious. And I'm looking at the plan of Atlanta and this underground, tunnel system with a tram and railroad. And I'm like, okay, it makes a lot of sense. Now, I'm almost stupid enough to be like, I want to go fly out of there just to be like, is it really efficient or not? But it's a solution to a problem, and some solutions are better than others. And to your point, I mean, why couldn't an architect design, even if it was a warehouse for Amazon and Amazon has a logistics problem? You're responsible as the architect for not just the roof and the walls, but the solution to the problem inside of it. And I think we used to be that. If you look at architects throughout history, we used to be the designer and the builder. And we were involved from everything from tail to nose in a building.
Yeah.
And not so much anymore. We've largely given up a lot of our responsibility in our profession. Say we only do this 10% now. And it's hard to maintain control of a profession when you've given away a lot of it, from construction management to building automation. A lot of it has just gone away.
Yeah. If you want to hear stories about the future of architecture, listen to Evan Troxell's podcast. Troxell, TRXL, is the podcast. It's a Gable Media podcast, and he is talking to the architects and tech entrepreneurs who are at the cutting edge of architecture and construction technology. And those conversations are fascinating because they're doing it right now. All of the technology that you think is in the future is here.
Sure.
It's already here, right? And you can see where the profession is going with every episode, because you can really and they're just having conversations, right, about what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's fascinating. Every week is a different take on how the profession is being overturned, in a good way and sometimes in a bad way, by technology.
That's good to know. So you already kind of got my next question. So, tell me a little bit more about Entre Architect. You have an annual meeting coming up later this year.
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? Who should go? What are all the details?
Yeah. The annual meeting is for our community. And our community, when I say that, is small firm architects around the entire world. That's the Entre Architect community, small firms. And small firms are, anybody who's a sole practitioner up to maybe 15, 20 people. Those are small firms in our definition. And yes, bigger than that, you're welcome to. But that's what that annual meeting, it is our first conference. It is the first ever conference for small firm architects that are specifically for small firm architects. And it is going to be business focused. It is intended and scheduled to be at the end of the year. It's November 2nd and 3rd, with a reception on the 1st. So Tuesday, you show up Tuesday night. We'll have a big party, have fun. This community that we are all hanging out with and talking with one another over the internet for the last 2 years, 3 years, or 10 years, we get to hang out with one another face to face at a reception. And then for 2 days, we're going to have sessions about business and success and mental health and all the things that come along with being a small firm architect. And so the idea is that it becomes sort of the off-site retreat for architects, small firm architects. Big firms have these off-site retreats. They get the people who are making the decisions in their firm, and they go off and they have vacation, and they have some meetings, and they talk about what they're going to do, what they did this past year, and what was successful, wasn't so successful, and what are they planning for the next year. That's how this is being planned. It's being planned so it becomes the off-site retreat for our community. And it's called the annual meeting because we're going to do it every year. It's in Austin. And so if you wanted to go check it out, it's entrearchitect.com/annual meeting, and you can grab a ticket. It's going to be small. So if you want to go, you got to grab a ticket. In March 1st, the tickets open to non-members or current members of Entre Architect Academy and Entre Architect Mastermind groups can purchase tickets now before March 1st. And then they open up on March 1st to the general public for open, it's an early bird. So it's a reduced cost, and then some down. I don't know what the actual date is, but eventually it'll go full cost. But it's going to be about 150 people. And so it's going to be a pretty small, intimate. which is intended to be, very focused, right? And so it's not one track, everybody's in the same room, learning the same stuff, talking to the same people, and then lots and lots of socializing, lots of in-between sessions, being able to hang out and just be with one another, learn from one another, which is what I love to do at conferences.
Yeah, no, that's great. Some of the best takeaways and realizations I have are when I go to conferences.
Yeah.
You're out of the office. It's a different mindset. You get to meet people. They have a different perspective. You have people up on stage that are telling you things that you haven't even thought of before. And
Right.
you come back refreshed and you're like, I've been doing this wrong for 7 years or 10 years or 7 months.
Right.
And you can then say, all right, I need to adjust course. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And we positioned it in that first week of November because after Thanksgiving, basically everybody starts to think about the next year, right? So the end of the year happens just before Thanksgiving, right around Halloween. And so we positioned this event to be the end of your year. So you practice your architecture, you run your business, end of the year, come to the annual meeting, look at what you did well last year, plan for what you're going to do next year, then go home, gives you a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving to sort of execute on some of that stuff, get those plans in order, then go have a great Thanksgiving dinner, go have a holiday, and then January 1st, take what you learned from the annual meeting and start being successful. And then next year, next November, you plan on doing it again, and we get more and more successful every year.
That's great. That's great. So I got one more question for you.
All right.
And then if you have anything for me, you can hit me up. But what is the potential for you personally and Entree Architect? Where do you see this going? If you could project yourself 10 years into the future,
Yep.
Where are you going to be and what have you accomplished for our community?
Yeah. I want to leave this world better than I found it. And I don't want it to end when I go, right? I'm building this for the profession, right? And so what I've recently done is I've recently announced Gable Tech Network for Architects. And what the Gable Tech Network for Architects is, it's the seed of something in the future. Right now, it's a network, right? It's taking the community of architects, right? We have tens of thousands of architects in our community, but I have no idea who most of them are, right? I have no idea where they're based or what they do as architects. I don't know their specialties. And so we can't leverage that, right? We can't use our relationships to become more successful. Yes, we can, take courses, we can, do webinars, we can do all of that. We can hang out in the Facebook group and learn from one another. But the idea of Gable Tech Network is to take that community and bring it into a network. So we know who you are, where you're based, what you do, how you do it, and what you want to do. Right. And now we can take that network and we can match up this architect with this architect, and together they become even more powerful. Maybe we go after bigger projects. Maybe we can bring in software and be able to provide software at a lower cost. We can provide services at a lower cost. Maybe we can get insurance and health insurance and liability insurance at a lower cost just by bringing all these architects together and knowing who they are. And be able to maybe reach out to some of that technology that we were talking about earlier and make that technology better, right? That the network can become a way for us to engage with that technology. And so maybe, let's say the real estate industry has a software that's really powerful, right? But it becomes even more powerful when we plug in a network of architects to it, right? Because those are the kind of opportunities that we can have. We can collaborate with that technology to make that technology even better, right? So we can gain that technology, but we can also provide and contribute to that technology. And then in the really far future, the 10 years that you're talking about, imagine when we have thousands of architects that are all linked up in a network. And go back to that problem-solving conversation we were having before. Imagine the problems that we could solve by having thousands of architects who are problem solvers linked up through a network, through a platform that's intended to problem solve. And now we can go after big global problems, big industrial problems, and benefit from that, right? Make the world better from solving those problems, but also have those corporations pay our network to solve those problems and then distribute that to the architects who helped solve that problem. That's the kind of stuff that I'm really excited about, by being able to take this community that we built over the last 10 years and then leverage it to become something that's even more powerful.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I think the networking, the collaboration to solve a problem, especially on large scale, it definitely gets the attention of society, right?
Yeah.
Of the world. And that's what we need, in a positive light, instead of it's just another architect trying to get their 10% or 6%, or unfortunately in some cases 4%. So
stop, don't do that.
Yeah. So
raise your fees. That's what you need to do after this call. Raise your fees, double them. See what happens.
You should. Yeah.
Double your fees on the next project and see what happens. Maybe you'll get it, and then that's your new fee. And if you don't, then you bring your fee down a little bit. Raise your fees.
Well, don't think about architecture and clients and projects as a scarcity. There is an abundance. There's much more out there than you think, especially if you market and promote yourself properly. You should never be in the position where you have to lower your fees. And if you are, it's an indicator that you're not pushing into the marketplace hard enough. And frankly, if you have to go that low on your fee, you don't want the client anyway.
Exactly right.
So
sometimes you make more money on the projects you don't take.
Absolutely. It's I do this thing called the dwindling spiral, and I think in some marketplaces, some either geographically or depending on the vertical you're in, public, residential, whatever the case may be, there's these pockets of this, I'm going to go lower than the next guy or the next firm or the next girl because I'm going to win. And
right.
when you win, you've really lost, because you cannot survive. That's not a good way to run a business. But it creates a commodity out of what we do. And that's why we've ended up in this position as a profession, because we get shopped. I'm going to go to this firm and that firm and this firm, and I'm going to shop around till I get the lowest fee.
Yeah.
And we've done that to ourselves. And I mean, I had a competitor of mine, middle of COVID, call me up and tell me, I'm going to go in at 4%. I'm like,
good
okay,
it's all yours.
Good luck. Yeah. And his philosophy was, we're desperate for work right now. And we didn't need the work. And I was like, good luck. I mean, if you get it at 4%, you know you're going to lose money. And he's like, I have to do something to keep the lights on.
And I was build a better business.
Yeah. And that's where, as it's interesting. We have to compete with each other, but at the same time, our competition shouldn't be on that fee for a project. We should be competing to make each other better, so that when I don't get a project and you do, you're getting it at a healthy rate, and I get the next one and maybe you don't. There's an abundance of work out there, to my point earlier, but we should be helping each other and educating each other to the point where we don't even have these conversations about how low can you go on your fee. It's just ridiculous.
Right. Which is why it's so important to build a brand and differentiate yourself from your competition. So you can demand higher fees, that if you want to work with us, this is what it costs. And if you don't, then good luck.
Yeah. Well, in some ways too, it's selfish to lower your fee, because when you lower your fee, you can't market, you can't pay your employees, you get brand issues. You're probably struggling to pay your liability insurance at that point.
Yep.
You're trying to cut corners to get the project done, and there's nothing to give back at the end. There's no way to go back to your community, your charities that you want to support, your staff. So, in some ways you think you're doing the right thing by cutting your fee. You're not. It's actually very selfish.
Yeah. And you're building your brand with every decision you make. So if you're making the decision to raise your fees, you're building a brand that you are worth what you're charging. And if you're building a brand that's based on lowering your fees, that's your brand. You're a cheap architect. You work for 4%. because that client's going to tell his buddy that, look, this architect worked for 4%, go to him. He's cheap.
Yeah.
And that's your brand. Now that's who you are.
You become known as the Kmart architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's your reputation. And it's a bad reputation to get. It's hard to get out of that space once you get in there.
Yeah.
So
I have a question for you. This is a question that I usually wrap up my podcasts with. And it's a big, wide open-ended question that I ask every architect I've had. Like I said, this is 451. I definitely asked this more than 300 times. What's one thing that a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow? What can they do right now that'll impact their business for tomorrow?
I think I'm a big believer in really two things. One, I think if anything you could do is, this goes back to the self-respect and dignity, market yourself, promote. We do not do, as a profession, we do not do enough of that for ourselves. I don't know if it's because we're shy, we're worried about the money, we're taught that it's not a dignified thing to do. Going back to, I think the meeting I read, it was the meeting minutes from an AIA meeting in the early 1900s. And that was one of the things in there, said it is undignified to market yourself.
Right.
So if there's anything you could do is monitor and track how much outflow you put into the marketplace. It will come back to you, but architects have an abundance of content. Every sketch you do, every project meeting, drawing, there's no limitation on content. So because I've heard that a lot. I don't know what to put out there. Yeah. Just put out what you're doing every day. So I think on one hand, it's that you have to get over this idea of being afraid to market and promote yourself. The more you do that, the more attention you get, the more clients you're going to get. I think that's something you have to do every day. And then the other part would be, and this is a selfish answer because it's what I do, but it's training, whether that's figuring out how to market, figuring out how to negotiate on a fee, how to train your staff on, just follow up, or how to show up to work, or a multitude of things. But it goes back to what we were talking about before. You leave college, or staff leaves college, and they have a 5-year experience in technical and design, right? But they don't know how to call a client. They don't know how to deal with communication issues in the office. They don't know how to deal with follow-up issues. There's a multitude of things that we're not taught. Most of us, at least our generations, learned them the hard way. We were told, don't bother me, just go figure it out. And we screwed up a lot of stuff, some bigger than others, but so you figured it out the hard way. But the world is changing so rapidly, to, again, your point earlier with technology and the way younger generations were brought up with a device. It's not the same world. It's not as easy to just say, go figure it out. And a lot of pain and brain damage could be avoided if you actually, us as firm owners or our staff, knew what the hell to do before the fire alarm was pulled. And so I think if you could do one thing, market the hell out of yourself. And then the other thing you could do is get trained. So when the situation's happening live on the ground, you're in battle mode, it's second nature to handle the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. For my audience, his name is Chris Colby. The podcast that we're recording for is Antidote One podcast. You should go check that out. We'll have links to all of that on the show notes for my episode. You should go check them out. And Chris, I want to thank you for everything that you're doing at Antidote One. You're a big part of the solution in our profession, and I appreciate that. And so I want to thank you for doing what you do at Antidote One, and for thank you for being on my podcast, the Entre Architect Podcast. I appreciate you.
The website that has more information on it's training.antidoteone.com. That's where you're going to find more of the meat of what we do. You were here before me in this space, so it's an honor to even be on the same podcast with you and watch what you've done and how you grow.
If you liked this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a rating, write a review. Go write a review. I would love to know what you think of this podcast, and it helps other architects find us. So go do 5-star rating if you like it. Share, write a review. I'd love it. And share a link to this episode with a friend, because that's how we've grown. That's how Entre Architect has grown to serve thousands of architects throughout the world, just like you. Thank you to our sponsors, ARCAT, FreshBooks, and BQE for their support of this episode. I ask you to support them because they support us. And if they're supporting us, they're supporting you. So go support them. Got it? Go support our sponsors. Links to our sponsors, so you can click on those links and go right to them. Links to our sponsors and all the resources we shared today are available at the show notes for this episode at entrearchitect.com/podcast. All the shows are there. entrearchitect.com/podcast. Entre Architect is a member of the Gable Media Podcast Network. Gable Media is curated thought leadership for an audience dedicated to building a better world. Listen and subscribe to all the shows. I think there are 11 of them there now. Go there, gablemedia.com. That's GABL media.com. And I hope you're going to join us in Austin November 1st through November 3rd, 2022. Those are the dates for the Entre Architect Community Annual Meeting, our first ever live and in-person conference for you, the small firm architect community. Visit entrearchitect.com/annual meeting right now to learn more. That's entrearchitect.com/annual meeting, and I will see you in Austin in November. Don't miss this. This is going to be great. entrearchitect.com/annual meeting. It's a conference for you, small firm architects. Thank you for listening today to this episode of Entre Architect Podcast. Love, learn, and share what you know.
Imagine earning continuing education credits while doing exactly what you're doing right now. Well, you can. Gable Media has revolutionized the way you earn your continuing education credits with a groundbreaking approach. Forget running around town and scouring the internet for credit-worthy courses. Fulfill your CE requirements effortlessly by listening to engaging podcasts just like the one you're listening to now. Our podcasts are designed to educate, entertain, and inspire, all in a user-friendly environment. But wait, there's more. Architects, Gable Media is also approved as an AIA continuing education services provider. Upon completion, we handle everything, from reporting your hours directly to the AIA to storing your certificates in your personal Gable Media profile for your self-reporting needs. So follow the link in the show notes and start earning your credits in the most innovative and entertaining way possible with Gable Media.
Attention architects and creative minds, get ready to supercharge your brand with Build Your Brand, the podcast that's unlocking the secrets of branding success for creatives. Hey there, it's Mark Arlepage, founder of Entre Architect, and I'm inviting you to join my friend, architect marketing expert Jeff Eccles at Build Your Brand podcast, where he explores the captivating stories of the world's top brands and transforms their lessons into powerful moves for small firm architects and creatives like you. In Season 1, Jeff shares the thrilling tale of Southwest Airlines, where he dissects their journey to the summit and distills it into strategies tailor-made for you.
It's important to keep in mind that companies like Southwest compete in the real world, just like you, and face real-world challenges, just like you. You might be surprised at how similar those challenges are to the struggles that you grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Don't miss out on your blueprint for success. Subscribe, tune in, and let's build your brand together.
You may have noticed that the very best brands in the world are also known for having somewhat unique corporate cultures. That's often the glue that holds everything together when they encounter those rough spots.
We don't do it because it inconveniences the passengers to whom we are primarily dedicated, the short haul, frequent flyer.
Follow the link in the show notes to subscribe to Build Your Brand today. Remember, no matter the size, the journey's the same. Your brand's journey to the top starts here.